What are you most excited for on year 2?
I'm excited for our 2 new principals. New middle school and high school principal. I am so excited for their journey. They have already done some awesome stuff already, and we don't even have kids in the building yet. Saw her the next day or the next Monday, whatever, and I said, "Well, I suppose you heard." She goes, "Oh, heard about what?" I was like, "Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about." And she goes, "Oh, that Jack beat you," and I'm like.
He did tell people. Darn it.
He told everybody.
I'm sure he did. Typical Saturday morning.
For them it is. Yep. The exchange kids were up and moving. So we got Alex from Germany there. He was CrossFitting away this morning already.
Soccer player?
He is not a soccer player. He will play basketball. We introduced him to Coach Nelson
right on
last night at the scrimmage, and Coach Nelson was a little excited to see somebody that might have had just a touch of height. I don't know about his skill or experience. Like I always compare. I look at like what Bork was to soccer. I think he was a very talented soccer player. I don't think that's Alex in terms of basketball, but I think he can contribute somehow.
Sure,
even if it's at JV.
Well, and what's his mentality too, coming from another country? Is it just like radically different from what you'd expect?
He's our first German. So the one thing I would say with him being from Germany is that he's very, very proud of his country. Mm-hmm. But he's very outgoing, very social. He's just it's the kind of an overused phrase, but he's excited to be here and excited to try new things and see new things. And we welcomed him to Iowa, taking him to the state fair.
There you go.
Walked around the state
fair. On
day
one.
Yeah, and he comes from his mom's a dentist, and his dad is a like a fitness, exercise, science type guy, and so they're insanely healthy. Whole foods, all the things, and we took him and gave him 6 fried Oreos. welcome to Iowa.
Welcome.
That'll do it.
Yeah, I'm like proud and ashamed at the same time of Iowa. Like who has the ingenuity to do fried Oreos, but Midwesterners. But at the same time, like it's so bad.
He had a lot of stereotypes, and he's like, "Oh, this is typical American, yeah." And I'm like, "We don't eat fried Oreos every day,
right?"
So
we just have the option.
We do.
That's what it's all. We have all the options you can possibly want.
That's right.
Indeed, man. How what do you know about German school system? Were you an exchange student back?
No, not really. I came to college as a Canadian.
Yeah. So technically, yes.
Technically, yes. I didn't never do an exchange year through high school or anything like that. I know very little about the German education system. So for now, we've hosted kids. We have our second Norwegian with us as well. We've had Italians, Austrians, and Spanish, and so I know enough about their education system to be dangerous. But it's unique compared to what we have for sure.
In what sticks out to you?
So a lot of it's highly customizable and highly personalized. That can be challenging for us in a smaller community to be able to do. There's pros and cons to it. The pros, of course, you can customize it to very specific pathways, which we can sort of do here. But the challenges of that are that you have to decide, probably as about a 6th or a 7th grader, what you want to do.
Boy.
And we went to a conference back in August, and one of the keynotes was really talking about this right now education. And so it's this is what I want to do right now, but in 2 months from now, I might not want to do that anymore, and I want to do something else. And that's where the kind of the negative parts of that, I would say, come in, is that you don't have a choice. These, it's all of them kind of say the same thing. When I say all of them, our exchange kids, they'll say once you decide, that's it.
There's no changing.
You don't change.
You don't change.
Otherwise, you have to come all the way back.
Oh, no kidding.
Start over again.
From a 6th, 7th grade type of.
So it's all these pathways. So
okay.
They may have 10 different options. And so if you choose option one will take you to the next layer, and you might have then 3 options, and then you take one of those 3 options, and then you might only have 2 options from it. It's about getting you down to a specialized path, the way they kind of move through their high school careers. So, and they actually don't, so like Alec, this is one thing I do know, is he won't finish high school until he's 20.
Till he's 20.
20.
So is coming here adding on a year?
So this year doesn't count for him.
Doesn't count at all?
Nope.
Is it part of his pathway, or is it just him choosing to do something with his life?
This is an experience.
Crazy.
For him. So on the other hand, we have, Sophie from Norway. This year will count for her.
Okay.
But the way that it will count for her is that since we do trimesters and they don't know what trimesters are, they do it by semesters. You have to be in that course or a strand. It's like, so if she's going to take English, she has to take English all year long, and then her Norwegian Department of Education will count it for her.
Right on.
Same thing with like any other course. She's big into like sociology, psychology. That's kind of her desire. So she's been really after that since she's been here, really trying to find those types of courses to kind of meet that need.
Where was Bork from?
He's Norway.
And they've got a crazy school system, right? Or is it, so when I say crazy, I mean like very malleable, very open, very free, very experience-based.
Very much so.
I mean, it sounds so good, right?
It does. It's in good. I think it's good in theory.
On paper, in theory.
And for them, I think, when you look at Norwegian schools, I think they're one of the top performing, countries in the world. So they got to be doing something right. Oftentimes I look at it in terms of our rigor compared to theirs, or our challenge compared to theirs. And Norway seems pretty comparable to us. We had an Italian student that came, and he was technically a senior. He was actually 18 when he came here. We give all of our kids the, quote unquote senior experience in the US. He came here and we couldn't put him in classes difficult enough. Because he's like, well, we had him in, I think it was a college calculus or something like that. And he just said this, I did this 3 years ago. So we're like, okay.
Where was he from?
He was from Positano. He's from Italy. So
got it.
Parents were yacht designers.
Yacht designers.
And so dad was he like civil, structural, and he was 3 types of engineer. It was unbelievable.
Was he going the engineering route to follow in his parents, or
that was his goal? That was his desire. He had some issues and ended up having to go home early. He kind of self-imploded while he was here, which happens. While he was here, he was a great kid. So
okay, I have to ask, what does that mean? How does somebody self-implode?
You get into things that you are illegal.
Okay,
that you shouldn't do.
Okay,
and when kids come here, so we work with EF, or Education First, and there's 12 rules, and he broke rule number 1. So
what's rule number 1?
No drugs or alcohol.
Okay. So let me ask you something, because like education has, it's a path. You have to have a start and you have to have an end. Otherwise, it's just experiences. And so the education, a part of that, even though you're learning how to think, you're learning different things, and you're having things that you can explore and utilize, there is an aspect of completion with that. In the United States culture, we have a very free society where we can do a lot of things. We have a lot of options. We have that ability to switch, and we value that. And there's a lot of benefits to that. But what aspect of the educational system do you see is challenged because of all that freedom? Like, are you seeing that it's harder, or people that do finish, are they more resilient? What's your perspective on the challenges of having that freedom to, sit on the television or play a bunch of video games instead of finishing your homework and that kind of thing?
Right. So I think that's where, when you think about relevancy, a lot of kids want, when you think of like the Gen Z kids, what's their first question they always ask anytime hey, go take out the trash. Why? So it's, hey, I need you to complete this assignment. Why?
Right.
Why should I have to? So it's how do we find that relevance for kids to make school important?
Well, what's that answer?
And I think that a lot of that comes down to is to listening to what kids need, listening to what kids want, and trying to offer up a plethora of options for kids to do. I think where it becomes challenging, and some state departments have lightened up on that, but it's finding the educators to be able to teach the courses. And that becomes really tricky. You know, we're going to head into 23-24, a Spanish teacher short. And, you know, I hate to see, we have a few of our high school teachers that could retire. And, you know, I had a few of them approach me and say they probably should, but they know that if they do, we might not find somebody to replace them. And so that becomes a little challenging there for us to kind of encounter.
Is that a subject specific issue, or is that a teaching issue as a whole? People not wanting to go into teaching, or is that an economic issue?
I think you're seeing a lot of there's a lot fewer kids actually going into education. You know, I think from those that are coming like right out of high school. So I'd say like those 20 somethings. You know, we went up to we were up in Sioux City. There was a graduating class from a cohort that essentially did education as a second career. And so it was a program that Morningside has designed where as long as you have a bachelor's, you can go through this accelerated teacher prep program.
And what's Morningside?
So Morningside's a university in Sioux City. Okay. And so I think they had 92, and they were adults like over the age of 30 who were, you know, had went through college for something else, got a bachelor's, did that for, you know, 6 to 7 years, decided that wasn't for them. They had a passion for education and teaching. Okay. And so then they went into education almost as a second career.
Oh, interesting.
And so they had, you know, I think it was 92 is what I counted when I looked at the program of those who graduated. You know, however, I spoke to the senior class at where I went to college at Dakota Wesleyan. I spoke to them at, you know, just kind of as an arranged thing and whatever, just to talk to them about, you know, my path through education and how Dakota Wesleyan helped me and all that stuff. And I think out of that graduating class, I think there was only like 40 something. And so those were all kids that were, you know, 21, 22. And so I just look at that age range compared to the age range that came out of this Morningside program. And it was just interesting to me. I think those who are finding education may be finding it a little bit later. So,
what do you think the driving force is behind that?
I think there's a lot of income things there. Okay. You know, when
do you feel like they're not getting paid enough to incentivize it right now, or
I wish I could. You know, I hear that a lot. Is that you know about,
or maybe it's a comparison thing. Like, okay, I could do this influencer thing, or you know, there's this kid at home making millions of dollars with crypto, and why am I doing this teaching thing? Right. Is that
making $40,000 a year?
Yeah, right. Well, and are most of the people that go into education, are they looking at it as an investment in the future more than the monetary aspect of it, and that's the reason why they're doing it, because they're investing in the future?
Well, I hear a lot of conversation with, you know, the first question that we get asked from people who apply is, well, how much am I going to make? And, you know, so we have a salary schedule, and I share that with them, and, you know, then some will say, oh, that's not, you know, that's a lot lower than what I thought it'd be. And then I show them the comparison to other districts around. I'm like, actually, we pay more than they do. And I said, so if you don't think we pay a lot, then
just go somewhere else and wait and see.
Yeah. You know, and I always tell them I can't compete with Ankeny. You know, I'm not that big. So, and when I say I, like we're not that big.
Why do they get more money?
More enrollment. So when you have more enrollment, they get more state aid, and
just more money to go across the board.
About 80% of state aid goes to teachers. Essentially, it's where your salaries come from. So, I fully wish that we could pay our teachers so much more. However, some don't. You know, it's not income driven. You know, it's kind of a cliche comment, but they're there for outcomes and not incomes. And, you know, so, you know, in a small town, it's
teachers.
Yeah.
Teachers are there.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
I'd say several. I wouldn't say all, but
sure.
Certainly having a nice income certainly helps. I mean, it makes things a lot more comfortable. That's for sure. However, you know, I know they're not all there just to solely make money. And sometimes money is not a motivating factor for several of our educators.
Which that's a special person there. When you can find a highly motivated person, not motivated by money, who wants to be a teacher.
That's the best mix, right?
That's right.
Which is there like how do you hold on to that person? Is there a tactic as a superintendent when you
keep them engaged?
Keep them engaged.
Keep them engaged. Give them, you know, that a lot of, you know, what I found out is a lot a lot of those up and coming educators, they want opportunities to contribute. They want opportunities to be able to lead and lead in not like front and center, on the stage kind of thing, but how can we lead behind the scenes? Like, is there an activity or a club or some sort of committee that I can lead, I can head up? You've recognized that I have some strengths in certain things. I was try to find those opportunities as a superintendent. I have an advisory committee which I started, and it's an opportunity. I have 11 teachers on it, and so they see that like they see it as leading a district. They're getting to have input on district-wide decisions, and I've been asked. I was approached by a couple of them at the scrimmage last night. I was like, "Are we still going to do those?" And I was like, "Well, of course we are." I need to hear from you guys, and that's how I listen and learn, is by getting really close to the people who do all of our work.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's not me. It's like, it's you guys.
Right.
So
indeed, that how was a scrimmage last night? It was against another team.
It was Ogden.
Yeah.
We're a little small. We're a little tiny, but I think we make up for some of that size and speed.
Right on.
I didn't quite catch if I do remember there being like a little slant route that went for probably about 65 and a touchdown. I don't know if that was Jack Hansen who ran it. I don't think it was, but we had some wheels there and got him. And I know we sacked him a couple of times. We recovered a couple of fumbles. I think that we'll be gritty. I think we'll be tough, and I think that's kind of a Coach Duncan mentality that I think he coaches into his players quite a bit. So I would expect we have that. We're not going to have the Patrick Doherty out there that just blows kids over. I don't think we're going to do that. But I think it's going to be a very finessed game. Some
of those gritty, scrappy teams are the most fun to watch. You never know. Big plays are going to happen.
I think that's what it is. Right. I know they have a returning quarterback. I think Gabe's coming back to quarterback again. So, and I think they have enough leadership there. They have enough seniors. Cody Allen, Jack Hansen, Gabe coming back. Those guys are they're kind of like that core unit. They've been together for a few years, so I think they'll be okay.
There's leaders within the team.
Right? For sure there is.
Yeah. That's boy. I mean, Alabama's pretty gritty, but they're also pretty big and fast too.
That's a little different type of gritty.
It's a little different type of gritty right there. Yeah. I mean, greatest college football dynasty of all time?
Arguable. I think if you'll get some old timers that will say, "Oh, look back into the 60s and the 70s and look at Notre Dame," and and then you kind of get a little blind to anything that happened more than 5 or 6 years ago. But then I just sort of remember, I'm like, do you realize what Alabama did to Notre Dame in a couple of the most recent kind of Big Ten games? Because I sure do. But I think obviously I'm a big Alabama fan. I think what you're going to find this year is a little bit of an angry team.
Sure.
And that's a scary team.
Sure.
So,
right.
A lot of people don't really like Nick Saban, and
do you get it?
I personally, I don't get it.
I
think maybe that's because I have a ton of bias with him. Of course, I think his messages seem very, very simple and very clear. It's he always preaches
do your job,
and that's that's another Bill Belichick line there with the Patriots. So, but it's Saban always talks about do the things that are within your control every single play, and everything else will take care of itself. And so it's execute all the small things, and the big things will just happen. And so, he is such a stickler on details. There's a video a long time ago, and he had Julio Jones was one of their wide receivers. And, it's like there's somebody that made a comment that was like, imagine this, that he told Julio Jones that he was no good at his position. He needed to do something again. Julio Jones goes on to be like, one of the best receivers in college football, amazing in the NFL. And it's, here's a guy telling him he did something wrong and do it again. That wasn't good enough. And it's like, imagine that.
Crazy. How big is football in Canada land up there?
Canada. Yeah. I used to get told that by some of my former students, because they couldn't say Canadians. They would say I was Canadian, and I was just like, oh, sort of.
It works.
Yeah. I knew what they meant. So Football, not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal at all.
How did you get to the love of football?
Honestly, just being in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so 2005, so we're sitting there watching the Colts and Patriots, and I didn't watch a whole heck of a lot of NFL, almost no NFL.
Did you say 2005?
It was 2005.
So the prime time Brady Manning era right here.
Freshman year. And so I did not have an NFL team. I had no real care. Although I had watched, I knew about Brady and knew about all them, whatever. And so we were sitting there watching the game. He goes, well, who's your team? And I said, I don't have one. And I said, you know what? Fine. Whoever wins this game, I'll just cheer for them for the rest of existence. Huh. Patriots just blew him out.
Boom. There we go.
And he goes, well, it's a great time to be a Patriots fan.
Pats fan is born.
So, another 15 years with Brady there, 14 years with Brady, and a couple more Super Bowls.
And even though Brady's gone in the golden Super Bowl era, you're still a Pats fan.
Still in it. There's one of the awesome things with the Patriots is Bill Belichick pulls a lot of players from Alabama. So
sure.
Mac Jones, quarterback. They have Anthony Jennings. He's a linebacker. They used to have Dante Hightower, who was a big linebacker. And they've pulled a couple of receivers and safeties that they've drafted. They had Cy Jones for a little while, who used to be a cornerback for the Crimson Tide. So they pulled a few, and so that pulls me in a little bit more when I see that they had Damian Harris. I know they just lost Damian Harris, I think, to the Bills maybe. But they had Damian Harris for a little while, and I'm like, he was my guy. He was a staple in the Alabama's offense for a while. So,
well, and I didn't know. I watched a 1 hour documentary, and Belichick and Saban are friends. They've been friends for decades.
Fantastic friends. Yep.
They coached in the NFL together with was it the Browns where they were?
The Cleveland Browns.
Yeah. So they carry a lot of the do your job. They have a lot of the same mentality. So it makes perfect sense. A lot of Bama guys would just find their way to the Patriots.
And I think they kind of, get involved with the system there pretty well. So actually one of my kindergarten teachers when I was in CB, her brother was on the practice squad for the Patriots. So Cole Croston was his name. He actually played for Iowa. I think he was a lineman, if I'm not mistaken. So Cole was with them when they played the Super Bowl against, I think it was the Eagles up in Minnesota. And so he came down, he was visiting his family, whatever, and he came in and just to visit with his sister. And I knew who he was, obviously, because I knew whatever. I made that connection really fast. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, hey, can I have 5 minutes just to talk Patriots with you? And I said, I don't want to make a big deal about it. And he goes, you can have 2 questions and that's it. I'm like, great. I said, what's Bill Belichick really like? And he goes, as long as you do what you're supposed to do, you'll never have a problem. And then I said, tell me about when people are in the organization and then they leave the organization because it just seems to happen. I'm like, what happens? And he goes, either Belichick, director of player development, somebody will literally walk out and say, hey, you need to get your stuff and pack, you're gone.
Just like that.
Just like that. And I just he goes, and then it's just, they just literally look at everybody and, well, see ya. And then just go get their stuff and pull their stuff out of the locker room and they're gone.
I mean, that's pretty cold. But there's a heck of amount of accountability and responsibility there, right?
There is when they're paying them hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars.
You're going to do what we're asking you to do. And if you don't, you're not a good fit.
You're gone.
You're gone.
See ya.
That's yeah. I can get on board. I think I can get on board with that. I can get on board.
It's a way when we look at it, it's like a guarantee we make to parents, that we're gonna put a heck of a teacher in front of your kids. It's like, hey, come do your job. We're gonna support you. We're gonna coach you up, and I don't think that's any different in any business or organization that you're in. We're gonna coach you. We're gonna provide you all the tools, but there's only so much. We'll do 100 of our 50. You do 100 or your 50
to the parents,
right? The
parents, they've got.
That's what we're telling. No, that's what we're telling parents with our teachers. We'll coach our teachers. We'll do everything we can with them, and that's the same thing we tell our teachers. We'll coach you. We'll provide all the tools, the support, the feedback, the guidance, evaluation. To make you the best you can be. You got to do your job too. So, but there's I don't think it's as morbid as the NFL.
Sure.
Hey,
Not as
just walk
cutthroat
in.
right there.
That wasn't a good lesson. I need you to pack your stuff and get out.
Get out of here.
I don't think we're going to quite do that.
And just one day, yeah.
Oh,
Gosh.
man. Can you imagine? Show up. There was
No, I can't imagine that.
this is just like a little teeny tiny Patriot story. So there's a guy, his name is Joey Josefa. You can look him up. Josefa is spelled I think it's IOEFSA or something like that. Comes in, Patriots pull him in, and I think he scored 4 touchdowns in one game, ran for 240 yards, just unbelievable game. Showed up late to the next practice.
Oh.
So on Sunday, shows up late Monday, Tuesday. See ya.
Performance doesn't matter.
Gone.
No exceptions. No exceptions.
Yeah. And from what I understood is I don't think the rationale for him being late was a good one. I think it was well, did you see what I did for you guys last night? And that's not going to fly in the Patriots organization. Right. It's not about you. It's about us.
Jeez.
So
That brings up a great segue, because when I think about sports, there's so many different types of sports. Sport is a type of game, essentially, but there's so many different types of games. There's mental games and board games and all kinds of things. And then you have individual sports and team sports, which are very different.
Very much so.
And in a team sport, you cannot have, and even in individual sport, you still can't have the I mentality. I'm the superstar thing. And is that one of the reasons why the Patriots in Alabama, you've been so attracted to them, because because you have to essentially lead a team. Everybody's on the same team. Everyone has to understand they're on the same team. Yes, there can be superstars, but nobody can put themselves above the team. You can be a superstar within the team, but remember that it's because of the team. So is that one of the reasons why you've attracted yourself so much, or you've been attracted to that team so well, because they understand the dynamic of a team?
So I initially, I'll kind of back up to with like Alabama. So Alabama is the only college football team I've ever known.
Okay.
My dad's best friend went to Alabama, played golf there, was a coach there, golf coach there, okay. and all that. And so, he would go to a game every single year, multiple games a year actually, and he would take us to a game. So I've been to a lot of Alabama games. I haven't been to Tuscaloosa a whole lot. I think I've only been to Tuscaloosa twice, but I've been to every other SEC stadium except for Vanderbilt, which that's not a big deal.
Sorry, Vanderbilt. You'll be okay.
Anchored down, I think, is that what they are? Anyway, so so that's all I've ever known. And then of course, they bring in Saban, and Patriots get Belichick there, and it's just like when you listen to how they run their organization and how they run their teams, it is like they are very specific about the details. They're very specific about the people that they put in place to do the job. And so, yes, they know what everybody does, but they also trust that those people are all going to do the job. So it's like they hire the right people and put the right people in the place to do the work that they want to do. So it's like, from an educational perspective, it's like I can have a vision, and our school board has a vision and a mission that we want to go after. But if we don't have the right people in the right seat doing the right work, and me monitoring that or watching that or observing that or providing feedback around that, we can kind of spin in circles. And when I look at what they do with their organizations year in and year out, and realize that like what Alabama does on the field isn't flashy, and it's not. I mean, it was a little different, obviously, when they had like Devontae Smith and Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy and
some speed
and
and
Jalen Waddle,
some
just
flair.
That's a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys were all elite first rounders and stuff, but before that, like when they kind of rose into dominance, it was just handed to the running back and just let him go. And not flashy, not sexy, and not big high flying, none of that stuff. And they just got the job done time and time and time again. And so it's like, how can I learn from that in an educational perspective? For us, when we talk about school improvement or organizational improvement, it's like, how do we get incrementally better every year just by focusing on the little things or making sure we have the right people in the right seats. So
observing that has made you better in your way of doing your work.
I I mean, I think it has a little bit of influence. You know, I pay attention to, like, I just pay attention to what they say and how they say it, and just
and what they're doing.
Of course,
they have to follow through.
They're I mean, you know, success follows, and it's like,
Right.
you know, and that's what, you know, that's what I talk. You know, Saban talks about it all the time about, you know, we focus on our growth, and the results and the achievement will come. And so I've adopted that motto, because that's what it is. We just focus on growing, focus on getting a little bit better. You know, you can use the old cliche 1% better every day or whatever, but you know, we'd be like, what, 1,000% better by now.
Right.
So, you know, it's just, anyway, we just focus
Easy to say.
Right. We just focus on just a little bit better, just doing the right things.
Right.
You know, when we also use the phrase, you know, when we know better, we'll do better. And so it's just constantly learning, constantly evolving, but also keeping the focus on the same thing, so they're not.
And it also sounds like you are what I'm getting from what you're saying is that they're not doing things that are flashy that can bring pride, which brings blindness, which brings a downfall. They're just looking at, how do we accomplish the goal at the end of the day? How do we, you know, honor our fans, honor our team, honor our heritage? You know, essentially that's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
And keeping humility in mind to do it every single day and be the best that you can possibly be. I can see how that can make a big influence on your family life and because I don't follow individual teams, or I don't follow any team sport, but hearing you talk about that really, and actually both of you guys talk about that, really gives me a new perspective of the benefit of following a good, successful, consistent team. Really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a big Minnesota Vikings fan.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, man. I love Kirk Cousins. Say what you want about him, but I think that dude is the bomb. Did you watch Quarterback, the Netflix series?
I didn't.
No, that's all right.
He's not a primetime guy. He's like a zero-time guy.
See, I hope he proves that to be wrong this year. This might.
I just hope Brent Gersma listens to this.
Brent, man, we need to gang up on whatever this guy's putting down here.
You know what? So Brent and I legitimately, we had a sandwich bet, which was quite literally a sandwich. Last year, when the Vikings played the Patriots, and so I just said, "Hey, you want to do a sandwich bet?" And he's like, "What's a sandwich? Is that like a code for like a dollar amount?" And I said, "No, it's quite literally a sandwich."
A sandwich.
And he's like, "Well, can we play for like the big Papa Burger for A&W?" And I said, "Sure, we'll even make it a deluxe, you know, whatever." And so, sure enough, Vikings end up sneaking one out.
You had to pay up.
Luck. Stars aligned, all the stuff.
Yeah.
Mac Jones was a little tired. I think his shoulder was sore. So I I pay up on my bets anyway. So I next day, sure enough, showed up with a big old Papa Burger for him.
Did you at least get one for yourself too?
No.
No.
I showed up. I took the things out of the bag and then crumpled the bag and then put everything back in. So I didn't do it. I didn't mess with his food or anything like that. But I'm like, here's your food. I'm like, I ran over it with my truck. And I'm like, but have fun.
That's pretty funny.
And he's just like, he looks at the bag. He goes, I don't even care. This is gonna be so good.
Like, it's pretty. It's good because you won the bet. That's why.
Oh, he didn't care.
He didn't care.
Yeah.
That's why it's good. Is that how it works on the golf course? A couple sandwich bets out there.
Every now and then, I don't have a whole lot of people that get really excited about wanting to play against me.
You don't lose much.
Not often.
Not often.
So I'll give him a little credit because I've taken a lot of crap for it. So Jack Hansen, he challenged me a while ago.
Yeah.
And so the day that we had the initial day that we had scheduled,
terrible weather, right?
Oh, it was like 40 degrees and snowing. And I said, Jack, like, I'm a fair weather golfer now, buddy. Like, I'm not playing. And I said, but if you are insistent, I will. I will not back down. I said, but I'd prefer if we'd move it. And then so that was literally one of the only days, and I think it was like the last Friday of April. That was like one of the only days that him and I had that would work with each other through the end of the school year. And I was like, so nothing else kind of panned out. But anyway, I was just out at the golf course one night, and he showed up, and he was with a friend and his girlfriend, and I said, well, is this it? Is this our time? Are we doing this? And he goes, no, we'd better not. He goes, but we'll play like 9 holes, but we'd better not. Well, he ended up beating me, and I think he beat me by 2 strokes. I think he ended up having like 2 birdies and an eagle, and he eagled the first hole. Absolutely. I hope Jack listens to this too. He absolutely just bladed his chip, rails off the pin, and goes in, and I'm just like, whatever, Jack. Anyway, so I made one birdie and 8 pars. I just couldn't make enough to catch him, but anyway, yeah, he beat me by 2, and I just said, the best thing about this? I'm like, doesn't count. Didn't happen.
So it wasn't agreed upon before you started.
It was not, and of course,
that's why he beat you.
That's probably why. And he had said, he goes, well, we were playing for real. He goes, I would have been so nervous. I'm like, what's there to be nervous about, Jack? But his mom, Shannon, one of our instructional coaches at elementary, just a fantastic person, and I said, I saw her the next day or the next Monday, whatever. And I said, well, I suppose you heard. And she goes, oh, heard about what? I was like, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she goes, oh, that Jack beat you? And I'm like, oh.
He did tell people. Darn it.
He told everybody.
I'm sure he did.
So
I'm sure he did. Well, see, a real test would be like the 3-course tournament where you in one day where you go to all and play different terrains. And so actually the last time I saw you, you told me about The Big Miss, Hank Haney's book.
Yeah.
I've been listening to that. Dude, it's got me hooked right now. Yeah. It's got me hooked. And
what's that book?
It's kind of controversial.
A little bit.
Like Hank Haney was Tiger Woods' swing coach for 6 years.
Yeah, that's probably about right. Yep.
It was Tiger's second swing coach. And they had success. They had some highs. They had some lows. And it's this guy, Hank Haney, kind of narrating his relationship with Tiger Woods. Mm-hmm. So Tiger's not a part of the book. It's Hank Haney's personal story. So it's kind of a one-sided account, which you just gotta trust him. Yeah. You gotta trust he's just telling the truth. But it's just a fascinating account of like behind the scenes of arguably one of the greatest athletes of all time in any sport. Mm-hmm. When you talk about what Tigers did and what Tiger did through the game of golf, but how like there would be certain courses that Tiger was not as good at. He didn't feel like he was great with the driver, so he would either elect to not play or he would do a more conservative approach on some holes, on some courses, which would affect his ability to win or just his own mentality or whatnot. So which it just kind of blew my mind out because like the Masters and the majors get so much attention, and there's guys that play really well on that course year after year, but it doesn't seem like they do a whole lot on other courses
anywhere else. Yep.
And it's because like other courses don't play to their strength versus they might.
We used to use a term for that in college, and I don't think this is like, we just made it up or anything, but it's called horses for courses. And you have like, you have your style, like you have your course, and like, it was we had the same thing when I played in college, was that there were certain tournaments when we'd get our schedule, I'd check mark that one. I'm like,
that's just a win.
That's mine.
Sure.
And so a couple of courses I'll say I kind of owned through college where it was Landsmere up in Orange City.
Okay.
It's Northwestern University's home course, and then another one was Laughlin Country Club, which is down in Hastings, Nebraska. That was Hastings. Hastings.
There you go.
Hastings College. So,
sure.
And then Wilderness Ridge, which was in Lincoln, Nebraska, and that was Nebraska Wesleyan's home course.
And you played when you were at Morningside?
I went to Dakota Wesleyan.
Dakota Wesleyan. Did you ever go to Morningside?
Nope. Actually, I take that back. Yes, I did. I went there virtually for one of my masters.
Right on.
Yep.
My aunt was a dean at Morningside. I think in education.
Okay.
So her name might be on a piece of paper you have somewhere.
Is the last name Heisterkamp?
No, it was Haas. Haass.
Haass.
Maybe one S. Sorry, Aunt Luann. I'm doing you dirty right now.
Luann.
Why
does that name sound familiar?
She was there. I had another aunt who taught teachers how to teach math. That's how I remember her describing it to me. That was Aunt Celia.
So Courtney actually went to Morningside, and I just said, I'm like, Luann Haas? Question marks.
Well, we'll see if there's a connection. Small world.
The name does sound familiar, but that does not,
awesome.
I don't think it's anybody I had.
Sure, right on. Yeah. So what's What is your athletic goal? Do you have one through golf or through football, or you just going to keep being the best golfer you can, or do you want to compete, or do you want to just keep owning men's league? Men's league over, by the way?
Men's league is over, technically over. So the actual men's league portion of it, but they're still going to run a quasi men's league every Thursday still. I saw an email come out about it. The challenging part for me about men's league here is that I have to give strokes back. I don't get.
It does
strokes.
you
dirty. It does, and sorry, Joe. I don't think Joe does the handicapping correctly. So I'm a +4, and so what +4 means is like if you look at the course rating, and actually it's golf is weird. Of course, golf is weird. So in a plus, like if you look at the course rating and you subtract 4 off of that, that's on average, about 2 or 3 out of 10 times. That's about what I'm going to shoot. And so, but that's over 18 holes. And so the way they do it is over 9 holes. So I went out this past Thursday, not this past Thursday, but the one before that, and played really well. Had to give 4 shots back, and I'm just like, I'm at such a disadvantage over somebody who's a 14 handicap and it gets 14 shots in 9 holes. So technically I'm giving up 18 shots to somebody over 9 holes.
So you shoot at 36. This other guy's got to shoot at 52 or you lose.
Right.
Yeah, that's raw. That's a raw deal.
It's tough.
That's a raw deal.
Yeah. So
your mid handicapper is likely going to win a league like that.
Which and they should. It's the handicap system's more geared to help them or support them.
Sure.
However, their 14 is actually over 18 holes, not 9.
Sure.
And so them getting 14 strokes over 9 holes,
you've got to cut that in half.
It's virtually impossible to beat them.
Nuts.
So, because some people, higher handicappers will just have like 1 or 2 or 3 bad holes and then just make pars.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they par, get 1 shot. It's like, well, it's a net birdie, or sometimes they get 2 strokes and it's like, well, it's a net eagle. And I'm like, great. I have to make it eagle just to tie you. Like
tough.
It was like, there was a hole. I'm like, I can literally get a hole in 1. All you have to do is make a par and we tie. How fun is that?
It was fun, right? Do you still enjoy out there swinging the club?
It makes no difference to me. I just like to play.
Right on.
So
Josh and I have yet to be out, but Josh says when he golfs, he only uses a 7-iron.
7-iron.
In cup.
Yeah. So I
Tin Cup? Like the movie Tin Cup?
Yeah.
Kevin Costner is an all-time great actor, FYI. But yeah,
it's great. He was in the U.S. Open sectional qualifier, and he parred the backside with a 7-iron.
Savage.
Shoots 65, goes 29, 36.
Boom.
I think it was the 10th hole. It's like a little legendary scene between him and who was his caddy? His name was Romeo in the movie, but I think it's like Cheech Marin, I think.
Oh, sure.
And is his caddy, and so he's like, yeah, give me the big dog. I'm going to hit my driver, and I'm going to go over those trees. With a little draw. And he was like, you need to be thinking lay up and hit the 2-iron. And he goes through his whole bag and has like a little saying for every single bag. Gives him the old Bo Jackson, snaps him over his knee, and then he pulls out the 7-iron. He's like, there's the 7-iron. I'd never miss with the 7-iron. And then he plays the whole 9 putts out of the bunkers. Everything.
I need to watch that again.
So actually, I think the Hill, a little advertising for them, they have the Tin Cup Challenge. I don't know if that's tomorrow or next Saturday. I can't remember.
Oh, wow.
But you take it. It's a 7-iron and you get a putter.
Oh, nice.
It's a 7-iron and a putter, and that's it. And it's called their Tin Cup Challenge.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
dude, sign you up, man.
That's mine right there.
That's you. Get in there.
Yeah, I used to get so emotional over playing golf. My parents got me into a golf kids group, and it was a lot of fun. But then you start getting more and more serious, and if you go the wrong direction, you start getting really serious, and then you start acting strange. And so for me, I took a break, and then when I got back into it, I was like, you know what? I like the cut of the grass. I like smelling the wind and the fresh air, and having a good time with my dad. And then I was just like, what club do I like to play the most with? The 7-iron. 7-iron, pitching wedge, putter. That's it. And then by doing that, and then I would go on these like foursomes, right? And there would be like a doctor and a lawyer or whatever. And these guys are just doing the old, behavior that I've seen. And I'm like, man, just get the 7-iron. It's all good. I just made it right on the green. I'm chilling. It's all good.
Tin Cup Challenge was born. Right there.
That's it.
So that's cool to know that that's a thing.
That is the thing.
Yeah.
We did that. So we used to have this. It was called the Blue White Ryder Cup every year to kind of cap off the fall season when I was in college. And so our coach would pick a team, kind of like the Ryder Cup, and our assistant coach would pick the team. We'd kind of all get together, and it would be a big deal. So anyway, we play. They kind of do it over 2 weeks, and so it's like you kind of play these matches when you can, sort of thing. But then we do a final where you do head-to-head matches, and they randomly pair you up and whatever. And so I actually got paired up with our assistant coach's husband, and so him and I had to go head-to-head, and we were both a pretty similar skill level. It was my senior year and their first year, and he says, "Do you want to tin cup this?" And I said, Coach Anderson, I said, Anderson is going to lose it. And because we were the anchor match, we were the last two to go off. And I said, if he finds out that we do this, he's going to just lose it. And he goes, this will be just the stuff of legends. Let's do it. And so I had this, one of my golf bags, we called it the quiver, which it would literally look like a quiver bag, but it was a bag that I used when we went and played like 54-hole tournaments. We'd have to play 36 in a day. So anyway, so we took turns. The only thing we flipped for was who was going to tee off and who had to carry the bag on odd holes. and that was it. And so we both took our 7-irons and each took a putter, and we just took turns carrying the bag on each hole.
Crazy.
And played the whole backside with a 7-iron. And I would say my coach found out when we were on about the 16th tee. And we were only playing 9-hole matches, and he came out and met us on the green. He didn't say a word. I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad. And he wasn't he was kind of a pretty chill character, but when he got quiet, he was real serious and probably not real happy. And so we both tee off on 17, and we start walking off, and he's like, come here a minute. And I was like, oh no. Walk over, and he's like, he goes, whose idea was this? And I said, I take full responsibility. It was me. I'm not going to throw our new assistant coach's husband under the bus. I was like, it was me. I thought it would be funny. And I said, and actually the funny thing is I said, and I was on my coach's team, and I said, I'm beating him. I said, so let's just, don't worry about it. And he goes, we're going to have a real long talk after about you being because I was our team captain. And he's like, about team captain and being a senior and what this means. And I'm just like, oh God. And it's like, great. I'm like, I'm not going to be a captain. I'm going to get kicked off the team. All these things started running through my head. And anyway, we finished out the match, and that conversation never happened. So he kind of let it go. So I finished him out on the 17th hole. We didn't even need to play 18. It was over. So it was the match play format. But boom. Oh man, it was so fun, because once everybody found out what we were doing, we just, once they finished their matches, everybody comes out and watches and whatever. And they just were just dying seeing us carry one bag.
Yeah, right. One bag. Quiver format.
Four clubs.
Yeah. That's crazy. Would you do it again?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. That was like one of my favorite memories of college was playing in that Ryder Cup. So my freshman year, I got paired with a senior. He was kind of a wild card. And so he was the one who introduced me to road hunting, which is apparently a thing in South Dakota. We'd literally just load up a couple of 12 gauges and go on the backside, back road, and go shoot pheasant. And so we had a tee time at 5:30 for our match, and we were playing our head coach and another kid. And I wasn't on my head coach's team my freshman year. And we get a text at 5:22. Where are you guys? And we're like, oh, we forgot. Oh no. So we still had our camo orange on.
Yep.
And I still had a few shells loaded in my pockets. And we had our clubs with us. So like, we did know we had to play, but we forgot. We lost track of time, whatever. Yep. And had a couple of pheasants in the back in the back of his car, and it's a little awkward. But we jumped out. We still had our hunting vests on, and we went and played the whole back. We crushed them. But in our match,
Legend.
but we played with our hunting vests.
That's the stuff of legends right there.
My buddy is a senior. First hole, he literally takes like a full shell, marks his ball with a shell.
That's awesome.
Which you can use anything you want as a ball marker.
Right,
It doesn't
right.
matter. And that's, oh man, we were so in their head
The distraction, yeah,
of like, you guys seriously forgot. Well, no, we didn't forget.
right.
We got a plan,
We meant to do this.
I'm like, were we here on time?
right?
Okay, we didn't forget then.
That's awesome.
Good times.
The best golf movie of all time, in my opinion, is The Legend of Bagger Vance.
That's a good one.
That's a good. Oh, I was hoping you were going to get on board with
good
that.
one.
Do you have a better one? Tin Cup.
No, Happy Gilmore.
It's
Stuff of legends.
stuff of legends, I guess. Yeah. It's not. It doesn't have enough chutzpah for me. It doesn't have enough depth. You know.
Yeah.
I need a little Matt Damon, Will Smith banter.
It's your Happy Gilmore's more like your
Yeah.
klutz comedy type thing.
There you go.
Yeah, but
Right.
I mean I don't mind it because I don't know if is it based on a true story.
Happy Gilmore.
No. I mean that is definitely a
that-
true story. That
Definitely a true story. Sure. No,
there's
Bagger
no way
Vance.
it's not.
Yeah.
I thought it
Yeah.
was because they did that big celebrity match and
Yes.
I
Right
thought it
on.
was maybe.
Indeed. So, league next year, hockey stick putting for you. Then is that what you're going to do?
know
I'm sure
what?
you've done it before.
So that Odyssey putter that Happy Gilmore uses, it's like an actual thing. Like they actually
it?
they made them. So they made 100 of them.
7-iron and Odyssey putter there.
Odyssey putter, big
One back.
big gold thing. So
Wow.
Long story really short. So I call him my brother-in-law, but he's not technically my brother-in-law. Has won a Stanley Cup. So
That's a big deal.
Nick Boynton is his name. He played for the Chicago Blackhawks. He played for Phoenix. He played for the LA Kings. Oh yeah, I think he might have played for the Hurricanes for a year. Anyway, only player ever to be drafted into the NHL twice in the first round.
Nice.
So because of him, they killed this rule. So he was 17, and he would have been drafted in the NHL when he was 18. And he gets drafted in the first round, like maybe 12th or 13th overall, something like that, and decides
Not going.
not for me, and goes back into the juniors for another year, re-enters the draft again, gets drafted first round again, about the same,
Crazy.
12th or 13th overall, something like that. And yeah, he was the last and only, well, it used to happen in the past, but he was the last player to ever be drafted first in the first round. But anyway, so Nick actually has one of those Odyssey putters.
Crazy.
And so I've tried it. I've not used it for a whole round, but I've tried. It's hard to putt with.
Let's see if Jack Hansen can take you on putting with that only.
Oh my god. I think
We could get some interesting challenges here.
I think that'd be the ultimate. That'd be the ultimate against him if I whipped that
There
thing
you
out.
Whatever gets everybody engaged, that. So what are you most excited for? Knowing you've been here 1 year?
One year,
Been
yep.
1 year, one full year.
That's it.
Jeffersonian for 1 year. What are you most excited for on year 2?
I'm excited for our two new principals.
Yeah.
New middle school and high school principal. I am so excited for their journey. They have already done some awesome stuff already, and we don't even have kids in the building yet. So, just a lot of excitement with staff around Kara and Karen, and they're kind of like they're being little mavericks right now. It's awesome.
Right on.
So we had Audrey, and Audrey still as strong as ever. She's probably one of the best elementary principals I've ever been around, and I've been around I think quite a few, and she's she kills it on a daily basis. So, and now adding Kara and Karen is it's kind of feels like we're a little bit elite right now. So,
Right on.
really excited for them. Really excited for our continuation with our career academy. We have 54 students this year, and so
Most ever?
it is the highest. Yep.
Right on.
So we legit started with when it was first created. COVID COVID did us dirty. I'll say.
Sure.
There in 1920, we only had, I don't even think we had double digits, and so that was kind of a tough pill to swallow, I think, for the school as a whole, and then the community. And then it's been slowly growing. From was it 21-22 to 22-23? We have nearly doubled. We went from 19 to 36, and then we finished out, I think, with 42.
Sure.
By the time the end of the year finished, and this year we have a confirmed 54 enrolled.
Right on.
We can hold or have at any one time, we can have 75. So, one of the things that the initial kind of plan of the whole Career Academy was for it to be a regional center for
beyond Greene County,
right? Just beyond our kids. And so I think the way that it was initially interpreted by those it was presented to was we were trying to like poach enrollment from other schools, and which is not it at all. We were simply trying to provide them an option to receive college classes at a significantly reduced cost, and not have to go to Fort Dodge,
sure,
essentially to get to the Iowa Central campus. And that, in smaller school districts, especially those with either declining or not great enrollment to begin with, they get really nervous when you say, well, have them come over to our school, because then it's like, well, what if they like it? And they might leave. And so I think there's a little bit of that, but I think it was also a big misinterpretation from the beginning there as to how some other superintendents took it. And so so this year, out of our 54, eight of them are actually not from Greene County. And so last year there was only 3 who were not from Greene County. So that number is coming up a little bit too. But one of the things that I have tried to make a priority is like our kids are first. We'll worry about all of Greene County.
Sure.
And we share with Peyton Sheridan. So we'll worry about us first. And so when I say like the 8 outside of Greene County, I'm including the remaining 46. Mm-hmm. There's quick math. There's some Peyton Sheridan kids in there too. So, I said, we're going to worry about us first, and we're going to fill the seats as possible. So like, if we happen to hit 75, I'm sorry, other school districts, like you're out, because we're going to worry about our kids first. But we're not full yet, but we're close.
Yeah.
I think we'll be close.
What ages?
So we actually allow, and this is, it's Iowa Central. So Iowa Central allows sophomores.
Okay.
Sophomore through seniors. So I tried, begged and pleaded with the president, who was actually my former superintendent in Avoca, Dr. Ulrich, to maybe consider some freshmen, because I'm like, well, if we can consider some freshmen in there, I think, we'll hit 75.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And so, because we do this thing called Encore with our 7th and 8th grade kids, where they get to come over for a shortened period, about 50, 55 minutes at the high school. So they come over for the first period of the day, where they get to be in one of the 8 strands of our Career Academy and kind of test it out, sort of thing. So, and they do that, in trimesters. So across the school year, they get to try 3 different ones out. So before they become freshmen, to see, is this something I like? Is this something I'm interested in? And we try to rope onto them and keep those ones, especially if they're really kind of have an affinity for it. So,
and I don't want to get lost in the weeds, but how does the money work with that? Is the voucher system is not fully in play?
It is.
It is fully in play.
Depending on your income.
So, okay. You might have to break this down for me.
I'll break it down for you.
Interesting, because like what you said before is, if someone from another school district visits and likes it, they can just
open enroll.
Now, what could they have always done that before?
So this last school year was the first year that the deadlines for open enrollment were lifted. So you could literally, this is crazy, but I could go to Greene County on Monday, decide, I get to Tuesday, I don't like Greene County anymore, I'm going to go to Ames. Great. Or you can go to Ames on Wednesday. I'm going to Ames Wednesday and Thursday. You know what? I don't like that either. I'm going to go to Des Moines.
You could do this.
You really could.
Could you come back to Greene County?
And then you can come back. You know what? I don't like Des Moines. I'm going back to Greene County.
So then where does the money go?
So this is where it becomes a business manager's nightmare. And we did have a couple of students who, out of their control, had to, and they were moving. So started with us. They were with us for 2 months. Moved, went to a different school district. Were there for 2 months. Then moved again. Went to another school district. And then while they were still in that school district, which is close to us, they just opened and enrolled back to us. So they were technically in 3, but 4 total different districts. And so the way it's all broken down now is it's based on a per diem rate. of like per day for that student. So it's like, so if you start with us August 23rd,
Okay.
and you're from XYZ district and you stay with us until October 5th. Well, we just look at, okay, you were here this many days. And we divide that by the state aid per student, which is about $7,600.
Is that a flat fee for all kids?
So that's the aid that a school district will receive for per student. So
Same for every kid. Same
is.
for okay.
Yeah, unless they receive special ed services, then there's a weighting that goes into that, all based on their IEPs, and that's another rabbit hole for you.
Right.
So it's essentially I say it's about 7,600. It's a little bit more. I think it's 7,618 if you want to be really specific.
Thanks for your specificity. I appreciate that.
And so then they would look at that and be like, oh, you were with us for 30 days. Well, 30 days out of that 7,600 is going to be about this. We're going to bill that district for that, having that kid.
Because they give you the money for the kid at the beginning of the school year.
So we'll get it after we finish. So everything's in arrears. So everything's a year behind.
Okay.
So we have what we call count, which happens October 1st. So as long as they're with us October 1st, we get them. We'll get the actual funding. And then as that funding rate changes, and if we have not the funding rate, sorry, as students may move in or out, or open enroll here and there, then the money follows the kid.
So then there would technically be a scenario where you would have to give money back.
We do, yeah.
You have to write a check, sign your name on it, and it goes to State of Iowa EDU department.
It goes to the other school district.
Straight to the other school district.
Yep.
Nuts, man.
And we are net negative in terms of open enrollment out. So we have, I think this year we have, as of right now anyway, we have about 55 students who are open enrolled in, and then we have about 72 who are open enrolled out. So we are actually net negative 17 students.
Interesting.
Which means that, so do 17 multiplied by 7,600, and that's what we send out.
Well, that's a big. What I do. Okay, so I'd like to get your opinion on this.
Sure.
So essentially, to get, so kind of like the thought behind this is getting the best possible experience for the student. Mm-hmm. So by doing that, you create kind of an competitive environment that a student and their families kind of in the driver's seat, mm-hmm. and thus incentivizes whatever school or school district to invest as much as possible. On the flip side, though, let's just say a school district doesn't have that ability to invest. Could that be a kind of like a waterfall effect where they could go the opposite direction?
So I think it can. So if not to keep talking about where I came from, but so Council Bluffs is in that situation where there's the Lewis Central School District. I think it's the only town or city that has two school districts that are literally in the same town, okay. That share similar zip codes and things like that. So,
interesting.
So Lewis Central pulls probably 450 kids a year away from Council Bluffs proper, and so there is a huge competition, and so the current superintendent of Council Bluffs recognized that pretty fast and was like, well, why are people leaving? And say people will give you the vote of confidence with their feet.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And meaning that if they like what you've got going on, well, they're going to stay or they're going to come to you. But if they don't, they walk away. And
right.
so she's like, what are we doing or not doing that are making people leave or making people come in? And what is that? And what's the answer? And so, that's something they invested a lot of resource in to figure out. What is that? What other opportunities can we create or build or put in front of people to say, hey, look what we have too. Don't go to them, stay
right.
with us kind of thing. So, so there's that. I think it can be difficult for some smaller districts that just simply can't offer. So a lot of times you'll see sharing agreements between school districts. So that's like, well, so the kid is going to stay with us. Like we're going to get their full state aid, but they may have to take. And this is actually what happens with us in Peyton Shanann. It's like we have certain classes that they just don't have, and so they have students who come down to us and take certain classes throughout the day with us, and then we build their school district based on on
collaboration.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so that's it happens a lot.
Okay,
so like a great example would be like Carroll. They share with Glidden Ralston in certain things. They share with Arweva in certain things. They actually even share with a private school, Carroll Kemper. They share with them in a lot of things. So it's, we're really intertwined with each other. And
so it's not just binary, like good, bad. It can be a whole nother kind of third option, third door collaboration that can occur that didn't otherwise exist, because you would, if you were making an option, you would have to be at that one location regardless.
Right.
Versus now it's kind of a shared effort.
Yeah. So that's cool. So we have options, and I think we provide options to other schools, and other schools provide options to us. And so, that's at the end of the day, it's like we're all working towards the same goal.
Okay. I have to ask you another question though.
Sure.
AI. Right now, AI. So you're familiar with OpenAI and ChatGPT. Okay. So it's based on that smile, you probably have an opinion. And I want to hear it because OpenAI, ChatGPT. So I'll just say this really quick. So when it comes to business, right? So
Can you tell Josh is a business guy? Can you tell he's interested in entrepreneurship?
It's okay.
It's definitely, so it's interesting because I was homeschooled for the first 6 grades. And then in 7th grade, I went to an art school. And then 8th grade through high school, I went to a prep school. And then I went and did some college, but then I ended up just starting a business, got into sales. And that's what I've been doing ever since 2008. So, but when I was in high school, the thinking behind it was obviously you need to be doing your own work and so on and so forth. When I got into business, it was hire the best person to do this. I mean, you need to collaborate, network, and if you're not good at something, don't try to muscle your way through it. You need to hire somebody and executive function skills. So that being said, you have OpenAI, which is an amazing tool, but now you have a whole nother level of what's your own work versus what's cheating and plagiarism and, gaming the schooling system. How do you guys incorporate, because that's a technology that's not going to go away. It's if anything, it's just going to grow and grow and grow. How do you educate in a world that's rapidly accelerating with AI?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is we actually had a few students when ChatGPT really kind of got some teeth in the game here at the beginning of this, beginning towards the middle of this school year. It became really obvious as to which kids were using ChatGPT and which ones weren't.
What made it obvious?
So there are certain Miss Reckemer is probably she hears this, she'll have me. Anyway, so it's like
don't get yourself in trouble.
I don't know how to say it. Like, if I'm going to write the word like however in the middle of a sentence, there are very few kids that know you have to put a comma before it and a comma after it. And so when you see certain things like that come up, or you see them, the proper use of a semicolon, and it's like, I bet you didn't know how to do that. And I'll bet you didn't know why.
Right.
Or they will start. So I think ChatGPT has obviously since evolved, but there was always a sequence if you were to say, well, one, you have to be kind of a critical thinker and to tell ChatGPT how you want something done. You kind of have to, I think you have to be you have to think through that pretty well.
Yes, absolutely.
Then there was always like the way they would go through their paragraphs or the way they would write, it would be like, well, first, and then realistically, and then, and
so there's patterns.
So I picked up on some of their patterns, and then some of the students that tried to use it weren't smart enough to change the formatting.
Right.
And so I'm like, there's this really cool tool button you can do. It's like, you do like I'm a Mac guy, but like command A, and then go tools and clear formatting and whatever.
Right.
Or they'd load it into a Google Doc and so then you'd see that like, oh, we started with a blank document and 3 seconds later we had a whole essay. Wow.
Oh, interesting.
And it had a black background with this like grayish text that they use. And I'm just like, so you cheated? And so we have.
What's their response, by the way, when they found
when you
out?
catch kids? It's like you.
Okay, so they're not like, oh, my hand wasn't in the cookie jar. So that's not crumbs on my lips.
I dealt with it there was only one parent who ended up bringing it to me.
Okay,
and because the teacher rightfully so said, this is plagiarized. Like I know this is not their work. I was their teacher last year, and they're a reasonable writer, but this was their best work last year. And they just wrote me a book. Like they basically just wrote me like, the Odyssey kind of thing. And they're like, that wasn't them.
Right.
And I, without even running it through software. And so we have software now that we can run it through that has AI detection. And so you can kind of pick up on some of that. Parent ends up bringing it to me. And I just said, I'm going to show you this document that they've shared with me. They've given me editing access so I can see all the changes. And I said, I'm going to show you why I know this is plagiarized. And I said, so let's go all the way back to the editing history. I'm like, okay, a document was created at 10 a.m.
Yep.
10 a.m. in 3 seconds, boom, essay's done.
Right.
And she's like, oh, well, he's a fast typer. And I'm like, no, he's not.
Oh no.
Like, no, we're not typing a 6-page essay in 3 seconds. That's not happening. No. And I just said, I said, let's just call it what it is. And I said, just be honest. I said, there's no way. Anyway, So long story short, we kind of, finagle our way through that one and student rewrote the essay and it was fine. It was no big deal. But I'm just like, we wouldn't have had to go through all this hoops and loops and drama.
But does someone take that, learn that, okay, wait a minute, I just got to put a prompt in the AI that says, write this at a 8th grade level, right? And then they learn the formatting stuff, and then they do that. Like, how do you at the core fix the actual issue of we want this to be your authentic work?
Sure.
When you have a tool like that, so
I think that comes down to those assignments. Are they meaningful and relevant?
Okay.
Because if I'm simply just going to, well, I really don't want to do this, I'm just going to drop it into Chat GPT, or back in the day when I was in high school, we used to use there was a website that you could use. You could pay $5 or $6, and somebody would already have an essay written for you, and you just download it and pay for it. And I can't remember what that website was called, but there was always a way to kind of do that. But I think it comes down to what's meaningful, what's relevant, what's the why. Why do you have to do this? Why is it important? And kind of getting kids to hopefully understand and see that. I think there is some little element though that at least if they use ChatGPT or some sort of open AI there, that they still have to, know what prompts to put in. They're still going to have some sources. Because I don't believe, or maybe it does now, that I don't think there's any actual sources that come with it. So it doesn't look like
there's no access to the internet but there are some add-ons and plugins, but you'd have to be a little bit more advanced.
Right. So you get, and then you'd have to also have the wherewithal to be able to go through it, edit it, make sure that it does actually sound like you. So I think there would still be a little bit of that, but it's I think it'll just be something we'll kind of have to see. It didn't rear its ugly head too bad with us this past year. So
it's mildly impressive if a kid can figure out how to do it well.
I think there's a lot that still goes into it, which which I had the conversation with a couple of teachers. I'm like, they still have to think pretty hard to go through this. I'm like, I really wish they would. I think, and so where I was kind of going with I don't think they give the references page, so if there's a citation, I don't think they do in-text citations, which that'll be the fastest way to know you plagiarized the heck out of this, because none of this is your original work and you didn't give credit to anybody kind of thing. So, that'll always be a thing. So still got to do some research. There's still got to be some element there, but
are you guys thinking 5-10 years in the future, in the sense that, okay, in 5 years, this technology that took, I think it was 6 months, and they had more users on the platform than any other social media platform ever. So in the next 5 years, this thing is going to just continue to evolve. We're probably going to have access to it on our phones and all kinds of other stuff. What do you think? Do you anticipate there being AI learning behind? Okay, this is how you interact. This is our school policy behind AI. Or what do you anticipate having to be done?
I think it's inevitable. I think that if we ignore it and pretend it's never going to happen, I think, it's not like the Y2K, when all our computers are going to blow up or whatever. It's not, it's not that. I think this is it's here. It's already here. It's now. And, and I think if used appropriately, I think it can be okay. I know there are some school districts, I'm not sure many in the state of Iowa, who have started to develop policies around AI. And a lot of what I see, it's more on the, prohibiting it and kind of banning its use. And I'm not sure if I have a firm stance one way or the other. I'm more of let's see how big of a problem this really becomes first. And if it starts to become a huge problem, and that's, we're just battling it left and right, then what do we do as a system to kind of respond to, you know, to get us back to that meaningful, relevant education, as opposed to kids just want to chat GPT their way into a high school diploma.
Right.
You know, so that's not what we're after, obviously.
Right.
So
Right.
We're in this era where like these utopian future realities are almost coming true with this, you know. Do you personally have a utopian goal, like perfect world? What would you like to see happen with the Greene County School District?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
it's a great question.
Money, time, resources, not an issue. Just perfect world. What would be the thing?
If money wasn't an issue.
What would you like? Right. Yeah. You perfect world. What do you want to happen? Perfect world.
I would love, I mean, this is going to sound really basic, but I would love if all of our kids, especially those who struggled with learning, just, you know, felt much more confident as learners, felt like they were truly able to do it, that we were, you know, I talk about this like elite status. Like I, you know, when people look at us and be like, I really want to go there. I really want my kids to go there. I went there and I'm so proud of it. And, you know, like for me, that's the goal. It's like when people look back and say, I went to that school. Like I went there, I graduated from there. And when people look back and like, oh, you graduated from Greene County? Like, oh man, that's awesome. You know, and like, that's it. Like, it's that sense of pride of, you know, we have something pretty cool going on. And I think, you know, that starts out with our earliest learners, and it starts out with our earliest kids, of making them confident learners, making them, you know, I'd love every single one of our kids to be proficient on all the stuff, on all the tests and things, you know, just to have that foundation where it's like we're not remediating, we're accelerating, you know. And that, I mean, I would love to be able to get there. And I think we're on our way. I mean, we made some strides this past year, and I think we still have a lot of work to do, of course. But again, like I talked about yesterday in our welcome back celebration, I'm like, we have a lot of the right people, we have a lot of the right tools. We definitely have the right leaders in the right place, and I think we're making some strides, and we're going to keep moving. But it's like, you know, the ultimate goal is like, we want every single kid to achieve. We want every single kid to grow. And, you know, that's, for me, that's it. And then to look back and be like, kind of dynasty, you know, if it's on the fields, great. If it's in the auditorium, wonderful. You know, it's kind of in everything. It's like, wow, man, you guys just do everything right. Like, that's it.
There's a lot of that going on right now already. You know, doing a lot of things right.
We're really, really close in a lot of things, and we're there in some other things. You know, and it's like, so then once you're there, how do you stay there, and how do you maintain? And, you know, and I think you know, full circle this back to like the Patriots in Alabama and stuff. It's like, and they arrived and then they stayed there for years and years and years. And it's like, so how do you do that? How do you do that in an educational system where so much of your stuff is dependent on little kids?
Right. Right.
Yep.
What's your utopian goal? What's your realistic goal that you'd like to see happen this year? Do you have one specific thing where if this happened, this would mean that we had success getting to that point?
So from like a in the classroom thing, so we're kind of in the middle of developing a facilities plan. And so one of the things that kind of just drives me nuts is like when I get all the, oh, by the way, did you know that we need a new roof over our middle school gym and wrestling room? I'm like, no. And, we budgeted for that back in 2017. We saved, you know, we earmarked, you know, that it was going to be about $160,000. Well, $492,000 later, we have the most smashing roof you'll never ever see. But it's done. And so anyway, so I'm trying to get us away from the oh, by the ways, and oh, did you know that? And, you know, it's more of like it's like a, hey, we know that the cooling tower in the elementary has to be replaced in 2026. So we're going to pre-plan for that. We know it's coming. So we're going to intentionally, we know it's coming. You know, it's those, I think we've had it in the past somewhere. It's, you know, I'll call it like it's institutional knowledge. Like if you're there and you were there at the time when it was developed, you knew about it, but it's not written down anywhere.
Sure.
And so that's one thing I'm really working on, especially I want it in place. Hopefully when we'll have 2 new board members this year. And so, you know, that should be in place, or at least the workings of it should be there anyway. So that'll be one of them. You know, obviously then when I start to look inward on you know, for our classrooms, it's to me, it comes down for its about growth. We got kids growing, we got kids learning, and kids achieving. When I look at our activities, is that the wins and losses are cool and all that stuff. But for me, it's about like how many kids did we get out? How many kids did we get out onto the field or onto the court kind of thing? How many opportunities did we provide? And so like hearing, I think we have something like 230 students participating in fall sports this year. For me, like, and that's 7th through 8th grade or 7th through seniors, of course.
Sure.
So when I look at that, I'm like, that's 230 of our 1,200 kids are doing something. And that's, district wide, but I'm like, that's fantastic.
Kind of goes back to that engagement that you were talking about.
And some kids, unfortunately, and we know this, that some kids aren't showing up to learn algebra. They're showing up because they want to play football, and then they want to play basketball.
Right.
And so that's their thing. And so it's like,
their why almost.
That is their why. That is their why. And that's
right.
And that's okay. That's okay. And it's like, so how can we maybe try to make that learning relevant anyway? So it's, I think about like, those are some of those, we hit our growth goals, hit our achievement goals. One of the things that we're really hard after this year is attendance. We made some big time strides this past year in attendance. Like elementary, I think they reduced their chronic absenteeism by 50%.
Wow.
From last year to this year. And it was simply just I'll quote Emily Gannon here, is that we're making going to school just what we do in Greene County, instead of it just being you know what, I don't really want to go to school today, of more of like I get to go to school today.
Sure.
And so it's just the thing we do. We go to school and we learn, we're safe, we're happy, and off we go. So we're really going after that. And then of course, how students feel when they're actually at school, like come back to that, that relevancy, that why is, and that meaningfulness of I'm here. I know I have adults that I trust, adults that I know care about me. And I want to be here. I feel good about what I'm doing. And, and that's kind of, we're after that kind of stuff too. So those are kind of our 4 big ones. It's about, growth, achievement, attendance, and kids, loving, hopefully loving being at school just a little bit more.
Those are your goal areas.
Those are our kind of our 4 goals. I mean, we have our strategic priorities, which all hammer around all that stuff, of course. But those are kind of our 4 ones. And then of course keeping the facilities plan, keeping that rolling. Our budget can be a little bit touchy, so just making sure that we're spending appropriately, being very fiscally responsible with our taxpayers' dollars, and not overspending or even underspending of not where we could be or should be. So just I always say being good stewards of our public money.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Right.
So
what do you need the community to do?
I can't tell them how to vote on November 7th, but
Is that for that's just politics in general, Iowa legislature, or that's school board too?
So nobody in our school district, like an administration, is allowed to say like, you need to go out and vote this way on November 7th, or something like that. So all we can do is provide information and just encourage people to vote, not the direction. And so we just hope we make it really obvious as to which direction we would like people to vote. So without saying it. So it's kind of one of those, it's an interesting piece, but we've talked about it a lot. It's called voter approved PEPL. And so PEPL is an acronym for physical plant and equipment levy. And that's where it's all funded through property tax, sales tax, and income surtax. And so that all directly funds buildings, buses, and technology. And so, like I've kind of preached to all of our new teachers and our current teachers and community members of, if like when you register your kid for school this year, you used Infinite Campus. Well, that's a student information service. We use PEPL dollars to be able to pay for that. The new scoreboards that we just got out at the field. Well, granted, the Greene County, gave us $100,000 in Home State Bank. Gotta make sure I'm saying that. Yeah, it is Home State Bank, Bob Allen. They gave us, check for $25,000, but we initially paid for that with PEPL dollars. And that's, again, so it's like, when we resurfaced the field, when we took that 28-inch crown out of the field, again, that was all PEPL dollars. Sure. And so, the roof anyway. So I can go on and on and on about all the different things that we've used it for. So it's a critical funding source for us. And so the vote on November 7th is for that to continue for another 10 years.
There's a vote for that specifically.
It is
not personnel. It's a Pebble dollar vote.
It's so we're going to ask our public to vote to allow us to go up to the maximum of $1.34 per thousand in property tax valuation. This year we're at $1.01, and I was so bold on Wednesday, and so hopefully I won't eat my own words, but I doubt I will. Is that I made a guarantee we won't ever go higher than that, so long as I'm here. So it'll stay we're at $1.01 per thousand.
Okay,
we're asking for the maximum, because if we ask for a certain dollar amount and then like inflation hits even harder than it's already hit, and we maybe need to increase that because just the cost of some of those things just start skyrocketing. Those little things start adding up. I mean, I think even in Pebble dollars this year, we spent almost $1 million. So it's like of just little. Half a million literally came from one thing. So, but anyway, so when we look at, so we're going to look at the maximum, but I'm making a guarantee to our community that we're not going to go above a certain amount. So
because some of our tax dollars goes to the school directly.
Yeah. So $1. So actually, if we back up, so $14.32 out of every $1,000 in valuation of your property comes to the school.
So you're not asking for property tax to go up. Nope, you're just asking for it to be redistributed towards the school.
I'm asking for it to stay the same and let us to continue it. Yep. So I'm not increasing. We're not increasing anything.
So to the $1.34.
Yep. Maximum of $1.34, not to exceed right now $1.01.
Is this our local community?
It is. Yep.
So we have the influence to affect how much our tax dollars goes to our Greene County School District.
Right. Crazy. Well, I don't want to say I do, but we do
we all do.
Yep. So we have a couple of different ways too that we can decrease it too. So we have our debt service levy, which is when we passed the general obligation bond back in 19. So there's we have an amortization schedule, and that naturally decreases every year. So it's going to decrease probably by about 8 or 9 cents per thousand this year. But then I'll call it mess with, but we do that because we want to see, well, if I change our income surtax, it's rate at 3%. If I change it to 4%, well, what does that do to our overall taxes? And so we can, without anything being official, it's like we can kind of model it and test it to see, our goal is always to try to slowly decrease that tax rate as much as we can. Because I know there's going to be a lot of competing priorities that we have. The Board of Supervisors going after the jail again. We have I think that water infrastructure is happening this year. So our water property.
Well, just starting. I think it's like a multi-year.
Yeah, so it's like 5 years, 11% or 11 cents or whatever it is a year for 5 years. And I'm like, we're kind of up against it here. And so that's why I was so bold to make the claim of like our goal is to lower property taxes. We're not asking to raise them. We're asking to just let us keep the thing we have going. It's what you've always paid in the past. It's not changing. It's not going up. It'll only ever come down. And so that's kind of what I'm making a guarantee for.
Do you work closely with like the mayor or the city council or supervisors, or do you have a meeting where you go to discuss this and how supervisor money is being spent? Like, how do you make your request known, I suppose, is the question I'm asking.
Yeah, so a lot of it for us is straight up kind of our own personal advertising that we do. So we don't, I wouldn't say we work really closely with them on much, if anything, because we kind of run separate of them. Mm-hmm. So we do have a 28E agreement with them for like the use of the softball field and the rec center and things like that. And so we pay a flat fee. I think it's $10,000 a year. And so our students get access to the rec center, and we get the use of the softball field and things like that. So
to the city,
we pay that to the city. I think that's about where we start and stop with them really. Mm-hmm. But in terms of this and how we spend our money, where it comes from and things like that, that's more of a school board and superintendent, school business manager kind of collaborative, decision there. So
just to make sure I'm fully understanding you, the Pebble Fund is a local thing, or this is a statewide?
So every school district has, so they have two types of the Pebble. They have the board approved, which is a maximum of 33 cents per thousand. and the board only needs to vote to approve that every 5 years.
Okay,
so that is always there. And then you have your voter approved Pebble, which can go to a maximum of $1.34. And there is one school district, I don't know which one it is, but there's one school district in the state that actually doesn't even have it, which I think is kind of ludicrous.
Yeah.
And there were two actually fairly close school districts to us that had it on the last election, and it got denied.
Oh, interesting.
And so I know one of them was Madrid. I can't remember the other one. I know one of them was Madrid. And, so I kind of dug into, I'm like, well, why did it fail? Why didn't they not get it through? And it was like, well, they just kind of took it for granted that the community was just going to accept it. And then nobody knew what it was. And so it was on there, and it'll be, the ballot question is going to be like this long, which is going to be, and people are like, what? No, they didn't even read it. And so, and so that's why I'm trying to provide as much education out in front of people as I can about what is it, what's the ballot going to say, what's it go for, why are we using it, all that stuff. So every school district in the state of Iowa has it. And so for us, it's, because we have a little bit of Boone County that still is in our attendance area. So there are some Boone County residents that will see it as well, but it'll mostly, largely be Greene County residents.
And again, it's not asking for any more money.
Nope.
It's just asking to distribute funds towards the school.
Right.
Sounds like a big deal.
Right. It's a huge deal.
Sounds like a huge deal.
For us, in terms of like the actual dollar amount for us, like that $1 per thousand this year generated, I think it was like $740,000. And so that is significant, obviously in terms of our funds every year. And, that's, it's all at the end of the day, it all comes back to impacting students. So it's a big deal.
Is the local vote more important than the statewide Congress vote as far as for like education, how much funding you get and things like that? Yeah.
So the funding that's all legislative driven. So, they have their supplemental state aid or SSA. This year they increased it only by 3%. 3% doesn't, and where that comes from. So I talked about that student price tag, that $7,600. That's the number that gets impacted by 3%. Okay. And so when we call it, and then we look at it as in terms of like new money. So it's like how much will that 3% actually generate for us in like total dollars? And so we get this spreadsheet from the Department of Management that'll say like, oh, Greene County, you're going to get, $86,000 in new money because of this increase or whatever. Some school districts go the other way because their enrollment might have dropped or whatever. So there's that in there too, but yeah. Well,
we're up over our kind of normal time cap here, but you're hitting me with all this deep, good stuff that I was hoping you would be able to educate me on. And I know the community, it's just the more people that know, the more you can get rid of the unconscious incompetence, the more you're going to have people who vote yes and know what's going on in the community. So,
well, yeah, I don't want to run into the whole, I had someone reach out about, and said that we send 30% of our state aid that we receive, we send 30% of our state aid to Iowa Central every year. And I said, do you know how much 30% of our state aid would be? And they were like, yeah, it's like $2.8 million. I'm like, oh my goodness. I was like, if we sent $2.8 million a year to Iowa Central, I said we would have been bankrupt 2 years ago.
Sure. Like, right. It's just,
we would cease to exist.
Right. So are all these numbers public knowledge, or is there?
There's nothing hidden about any of it. Yeah. So we only pay, it's still a lot of money. We pay Iowa Central a maximum of $144,000 a year. Is the way it works out. So they will guarantee us their instructors and then 1,000 credits at $144 per credit. Right. And so like if we go over, then obviously we have to pay over. But this year we are actually under, and so they billed us at the end of the year. I think it was it ended up being 119,000 or so. In terms of like, and so that pays for the credits, students to be able to get it, the teachers and whatever. So
sounds like a great deal.
It's not. It's a heck of a deal
for what we're getting, and for 54 kids to enter that institute and then to accelerate life a little bit in a way. Like
it is a steal.
It's a steal.
It is a steal.
That's the camp I'm in anyway. To borrow Hank Haney, what's the big miss of the next school year or the next 5 years? How can the community? How can things derail? Is there a way, or as long as you do your job, do the little things, we're going to avoid the big miss, right?
Yeah. Man, I think if we want to derail, I guess, would be stop communicating, stop handling situations, start blowing taxpayer money left and right, which I'm not going to do any of that. Our board wouldn't let me, and I wouldn't let myself. So that, I pay taxes here too. So, just got our property tax bill from Caitlin Michelson there. That was fun.
I hope to have someone in that arena on too, and just break down property tax.
Little 94% increase there. So that was fun. Anyway, I think it's just, I think some of the things that we just do naturally, we take for granted of just like, it's just what we do. We communicate, we inform, we educate, we collaborate, when we involve people. I'm still trying to figure out like, what is this community's like big thing? Like they are just, man, people get fired up about. Sure. And I haven't had anybody that's just come yelling and screaming and whatever at me, and to be like, oh, there it is, and so, like in previous districts, like when we were in Avoca, it was their grounds, like the fields and the athletic fields, like that was their thing. And if they weren't tip top pristine condition, oh my goodness, people would show up at board meetings and yell and scream and the whole 9-bit, and it's like, relax, it'll be fine. So that was their deal. Every school district's been just a touch different.
Yeah.
So here I haven't figured it out yet, what gets people like really upset.
Really, sure.
So
maybe that's a good thing.
I think for now it's a good thing. Sure. I'm sure I'll find out when it is, but yeah.
Right on.
I have a curious question.
Sure.
So obviously there's a big investment from the community in the education of the children, right? How many children are we retaining inside of the community after education that then can fill that pool back up to invest in the next generation? Do you know any of the statistics?
So like they would,
like they would get a job locally or they stay locally
and come back.
Right. So they can feed back into
we can generation. I don't know that number off the top of my head, but we can look that up and we can figure that out. I'll give you a great example of for I'll call them kids because they're all freshmen in college now, except for one of them. They all went through the educational side of they went through some educational classes in our career academy. One of them's at UNI. I think the other two are at Iowa State now as freshmen, and they'll actually graduate as juniors because they were so accelerated from the classes from the career academy. So they'll graduate a year sooner. So I told all of them, I said, you know what, I promise you, so long as I have an opening, I said, you won't even have to interview. I said, I will literally hand you a contract and come on back. And which I'm just like, they're three fantastic kids.
And what would they do?
They would teach.
Okay.
Yep,
okay.
Teach.
Gotcha.
I know one of them will be a high school teacher. She's not sure what she wants to kind of specialize in there, but then one's in preschool, one's in special ed, and then the other was just an elementary classroom teacher. And I just said, if I have an opening, you four got it. So, but one of them is actually just going to be a senior this year. So it's Hallie Monty. So she's way accelerated because of our career academy. So,
that brings up a great point, because the economic aspect of the income that a teacher makes is probably heavily them feeling satisfied that they're getting enough. Mm-hmm. I would have to guess is heavily on whatever debt load or expense load that they have. Mm-hmm. And so if they have a year reduced on their expenses on education, that's a big impact and allows more leeway for them to be satisfied with the income that they would get as a teacher.
Sure. I had to think about, those kids who go to, you go to Iowa State. I don't even know what a year at Iowa State would cost anymore after you think about like tuition and housing and meals and all that. And, and all that, I venture to guess it's probably close to 30,000, or more. And, so it's becomes a tough sell. It's like, well, I got, $90,000, $100,000 in debt, and I'm going to come back and make 40,000.
Right.
So it's,
well, that's a great sell on the value that what you are offering gives to the families and to the students and to the community. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. If we can pull kids who truly want to be here and, they're from here, I think that's how you build a you build a system where people just don't want to leave, because it's like, I went here, I was proud to be from here. I want to give back, to where I came from. And that's, these 4 kids, that's what they just exuded. They're like, I just loved, all these, they'll name off 5 or 6 or 7 teachers. I loved them. They were such a good influence on me. I want to come back and I want to be just like them. I want to do what they did for someone else. And I'm like, great. You got a place in our house.
There's a metric for success right there. Indeed.
That's right.
Right on. Last question. What are you listening to, watching? What content are you consuming right now? Podcast, show, movie?
Sure. So every Tuesday, I've watched every season for 19 seasons. It's called Deadliest Catch. So, yeah. So
right on.
That's a fun show.
We're on season 19. I think it's episode, 15 or 16. So Deadliest Catch first aired when I was either just starting in college, or I was a super senior in high school. I'll say super senior because I got 5 years of high school.
Right on. Okay.
So that's another story. But anyway, so
next podcast.
Next one. Next
Part 2.
Hour and 2 hours we have.
Right.
So we were in Seattle visiting my oldest brother. We were actually playing in his this big company golf tournament they have, and so we went out on Puget Sound, and here goes the Northwestern, which is one of the boats, and I was like, I've seen that boat. And then they just went out. I don't know what they were doing, but they went out, basically turned around and came right back into dock. And we were going across on a ferry, and I'm like, I want to go down and see it. And so we went down, and I got to meet Sig Hansen, who's the captain. And I just said, I'm like, I just watched, the first season of the Deadliest Catch and saw your boat, and it's so amazing. I'm like, oh my God, now I see it. And he's just like, come check it out. And so we walked through it. It smells like, so bad. Fish and cigarettes and everything. It smelled awful, but I'm like, this is so cool.
Right on.
Anyway, so just got completely hooked. And so that's what I'm watching. What I'm listening to is just a whole lot of everything. If you look at my liked playlist on Spotify, it's deep. I'm everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. So
right on.
Yeah, I don't even know what my first, I have Eminem actually when I pull it up.
There we go. Okay. Yeah.
Business by Eminem. That's the song I was listening to before I got here, apparently. So
there's a time and a place for Eminem.
I saw this meme graphic. It was like teachers, the only people who can listen to gangster rap and then show up into the classroom and sing in ABCs.
Crazy. That's awesome. So, right on.
All right.
Josh, you got some outro music for us? Yeah. There it is. Oh, I dig it. Hey, Unfiltered Season 3 coming your way. Superintendent Brett Abbotts. That's a wrap.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for being here.